New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani celebrated Independence Day by trashing America. Let's see why he's wrong. Welcome to Sharpening Arrows, where we train teens to think biblically about life and politics. I'm your host, Victor Jakes. Now, I have to start off by apologizing for the late podcast this week. I'd wanted to get this out Sunday night, and then my family and I were driving home from San Diego. We had a really wonderful Independence Day. We saw my sister and her family, and we also saw some really good friends in San Diego. Had just a wonderful time. I hope you all had a wonderful Independence Day. Got to see a really cool fireworks show. The fireworks were launching, like 100 yards away, and they were big. They were oh so big. But anyway, we were driving home from San Diego, and we're going up this pretty steep hill. The highway is divided, and all of a sudden I get a warning that I have high engine temperature. And for my listeners who aren't driving yet, high engine temperature is bad. just so you know. But if you ever see the engine temperature light go to the red, pull over immediately, safely, and turn the car off. And that's what I did. And after sitting there and trying to figure out with AI what exactly had gone wrong, I did the smart thing and called my father-in-law, who told me to do the really smart thing and call AAA. And so anyway, something had broken, and we didn't end up getting home until Monday. So I actually have some interesting things out of that I think are worth talking about. Life doesn't always go smoothly, and sometimes it's in those hard things that you can reflect and think. And the first, teens and preteens, I know sometimes it gets annoying when your parents tell you to do something or not do something. And, usually when you do that something, nothing happens. But sometimes it does. And what I'm trying to say here is I've had AAA. And again, for teens or preteens who don't know, this is a group that you pay a yearly fee to, and then if you ever need help with your car, specifically towing, they will come and tow it. I have had AAA for over 2 decades, for the most part, and yes, that does mean I'm very old. But usually I don't need it. Usually every year, that's money I send away and get no benefit from. But the reason I have AAA, and the reason that your parents may have AAA, is because sometimes when something bad happens, you really, really need it. And I really, really needed it on the side of the road, on the side of the freeway with no way to make it up the hill in the van that I was in. So when your parents, teens tell you, do this or don't do this, and you think, yeah, but probably nothing's going to happen, listen to your parents. One sign of maturity is doing things that are wise and not just what is pleasant at the time. The second thing that I think is worth noting is thank you, capitalism. Here I was in a strange town, didn't know anyone, and was able to find a mechanic who charged me what I would have expected to pay here in my home in the Las Vegas area for the repair. And why was that the case? It wasn't just because the people at the repair shop were nice, although they were, but they wanted to make money. And that didn't hurt me. In fact, my life was much better off trading the money that I had to spend, which didn't feel good to spend, but my life was much better off trading that money for a van that worked. That is the power of capitalism. And the third thing, and this is a little more personal, but you might see the application. One of the hard things about this experience as a dad is I didn't know everything that was going to happen. And, my kids did fairly well. They're, big unknown, right? We're sitting at the side of the freeway. That doesn't usually happen. We weren't sure how we were going to get all of my children in the AAA tow truck. Praise the Lord. They called in a second tow truck just to shuttle our children. So some of my kids didn't have to walk probably a mile down a hill through a dirt road to try and get somewhere that was safe. But anyway, one of the things my kids would do is they'd ask, well, what about this? Or what about this? What about this? What about this? And it's hard as a dad for a couple of reasons. Is one, I would like to tell them everything, but I didn't actually know all of the details. I knew we were safe. I knew we were going to be able to get the car repaired. And, I knew we were going to be able to stay somewhere for the night. I knew we were going to be able to have food, but I didn't know exactly what the specifics were of how long we were going to be there for, where we were going to eat, when were we going to eat. I didn't know those specifics. And that was tough. My kids, some of them did not they wanted to know the details. And as I thought about it, I wondered, how often is it with God where I want to know the details? I should be able to just trust God, just like my kids, I would have liked to have would have been able to trust me. So why don't I trust God, who actually does know all the answers? But so often in my own life, and maybe you'll relate to this, I just want the details. Yeah, God, I know I can trust you, but tell me X, Y, and Z. That's not what trust is. We trust in a person. We don't trust in our knowledge of the answers. We trust in God because he is faithful. We don't trust in God because he's going to give us all the answers. Anyway, that's a long way of saying this podcast is late, and I apologize. But I appreciate you listening. This is a unique podcast. I encourage parents and teens or preteens to listen to it together. We are going to talk openly about the best ideas of the political left and non-Christians. We don't have to be afraid of those ideas. We don't have to pretend that those ideas have no appeal. These messages are pervasive in the culture, but we are going to talk about the problems with those arguments and help you understand where they fall short. And remember, teens, if you want to debate like Charlie Kirk did or ask questions like Ali Stuckey, you simply must understand your opponent's best arguments. If you want to watch, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/@sharpening-arrows. Well, as I mentioned, New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani celebrated the 4th of July by giving a speech that pretty much trashed America. So I want to go through this, and I want to just pull out different parts of the speech. I'm not going to be able to go through the entire speech by some miracle and / my need to rush out the door last podcast. I actually did keep it to 20 minutes. I mean, good job, Victor. I'm not going to keep it to 20 minutes, but I am also not going to be able to get through everything that Zohran Mamdani said in this speech, even though I think there's a lot worth discussing. So I'm just going to pull parts from it, and then we'll discuss it. Okay, so this is Mamdani talking, and he's describing people who came to the New York harbor. When those passengers lifted their heads to glimpse what lies just beyond the waves, what did they see? They saw men waiting at the docks to take them into bondage. They saw tenements rife with squalor. In a different section of the speech, he talks about new arrivals, and he says they could not yet see the nativism they would face, the jobs they would be refused, the landlords who would not rent to them, and the abject labor and living conditions they would withstand. So he's using this speech on America's 250th birthday to talk about things that most of us would look back and say, yeah, those were not great things. So let's have a pause point. What's appealing about what Mamdani's saying? I really do encourage you to actually stop the podcast and talk about it. All right, so what he's saying is true, right? Like what Mamdani is saying is historically accurate. At least the sections I read. I won't guarantee you that every. In fact, we'll go through and point out some of the problems with the speeches, right? But if you go back and you look at America's past, you can see bad behavior, slavery, discrimination, racial discrimination. We can find those things, and so there is what Mamdani is saying is true. Okay, so we shouldn't just dismiss it out of hand. But let's have another pause point. What would you say in response to these assertions? And more specifically, which of the great 8 questions would you use to respond to those assertions? And just as a reminder, the great 8 questions are questions we put in our mental toolbox to help us unpack arguments. Question 1, what happens next? Question 2, has this been tried before? Question 3, is there a principle involved? Question 4, what are the trade-offs? Question 5, what do you mean by that? Question 6, this is an appeal to emotion or logic. Question 7, am I focused on the speaker or the argument? And question 8, what does the Bible say? Okay, just as a reminder, there are always lots of ways to attack arguments. So just because I did not pick the question you did does not mean you did something wrong. Okay, so let's just start with question 7 and just say that I'm guessing most of my audience does not have a high opinion of Zohran Mamdani, who is a member of the Democratic Socialist of America, who is a communist for all intents and purposes. And so what we need to guard against is just thinking, oh, I'm just going to totally dismiss him. Okay. We can dismiss his arguments, and hopefully I will help you see why we should do that. But I don't want us just to dismiss him out of hand. We want to focus on the argument and not just dismiss the person who's saying it. Okay. So I would go to question 3. Is there a principle involved? And the principle involved is this. Don't be a jerk. If you are celebrating someone's birthday, you know what you don't do? Oh, well, let me tell you about the time 20 years ago when this person cheated on their spelling test. Let me tell you about the time 10 years ago when this guy shoplifted from the store. Let me tell you about the time 5 years ago when he had just a horrible argument with his wife. Let me tell you about the time 1 month ago when this teenager backtalked to his parents. Yes, let's do that at the birthday party. This you'll see this a lot from the left, is they'll just spend all of their time pointing out things that they don't like about America in the past. Okay, yeah, and there are times to actually talk about that. But when you are at someone's birthday party, how would you feel if someone came to your birthday party and then just had this list of terrible things that you've done, and no regard for the fact, perhaps, that you've actually repented of some of those, that you've changed your ways? No, they're just going to keep bringing it up. They're just going to keep bringing your sins up again and again and again and again. The person who would do that is a jerk, and don't be a jerk. Okay, so we can actually look in here, and we can look at things like question 2. Has this been tried before? And in this case, I would say, have there been other countries that have been perfect? Like, is there a country out there? If we want to actually get into the substance of the argument, okay, Mamdani, what country is this that was perfect? What is the standard? Because anytime you're dealing with people, you're going to be dealing with imperfection. You're going to be dealing with sin. And so anytime you get groups of people together in a family, in a community, in a state, in a city, in a country, you're going to have problems because people are sinful. And so kind of what's going on underneath the surface here. We talk a lot about worldview, and worldview beliefs are basically beliefs that are operating underneath the surface that lead to conflict, open conflict and disagreements, but the real disagreement is happening underneath the surface. And we're actually seeing that here, because if your worldview says, well, people are fundamentally good, okay, well, then it's a big problem when groups of people get together and there are problems, right? Because people are fundamentally good. And so if people are fundamentally good and a bunch of people get together, there should only be good. Now think of how different your mindset is going to be as if you believe that man is fundamentally evil. If all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. If, like the founding fathers said in Federalist 15, James Madison, that, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. But men are not angels. We are fallen. And so we should not be surprised when a friend, a family member, a community that we're a part of, a country that we're a part of has problems. That doesn't excuse those problems, but it does mean that we shouldn't be judging people or countries against this standard of perfection. All right, let's keep going through here. This is Mamdani speaking. We are told that America is exceptional because we are richer, stronger, more powerful than everyone else. The truth, my friends, is that America is exceptional here. America is exceptional because here nothing is fixed into place. All right, let's have a pause point. Can you think of anything in our country that has been fixed in place? Okay, this is actually really important because what he's saying here is that the roots of our greatness. Remember if you listened to last week's show, we talked about kind of the roots of America's greatness, and here he's saying the thing that makes America great is that nothing is fixed in place. We don't have any North Star. We don't have any fundamental truths. Nothing is fixed in place. And we can see some of the appeal of this argument because there are lots of things that change. America looks different. Technology looks different. The military looks different. The fact that I am recording a podcast, it looks way different than how they communicated in 1776. But there are a couple of things that have stayed the same for well over 225 years, or 250 years in one case. I hope you came up with them. All right, I'm going to read this. This is from President Calvin Coolidge, a great president. This was his address at the celebration of the 150th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And I'm going to read this, and then we'll talk about the things that have not changed. It is not so much, then, for the purpose of undertaking to proclaim new theories and principles that this annual celebration is maintained, but rather to reaffirm and reestablish those old theories and principles which time and the unerring logic of events have demonstrated to be sound. All right, do you see the difference there? Mamdani is saying is that America is great because nothing stays the same. Coolidge comes and says, the reason we're gathered here today to celebrate the 4th of July is because we are reaffirming and reestablishing old theories and principles which have proven themselves over time to be sound. And this is Coolidge again. Amid all the clash of conflicting interest, amid all the welter of partisan politics, every American can turn for solace and consolation to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States with the assurance and confidence that those two great charters of freedom and justice remain firm and unshaken. Okay, so Mamdani says, what makes America great is that everything changes. Calvin Coolidge says, what makes America great is the things in our past that we hold on to, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And in fact, this should have been an easy one because what we celebrated on Independence Day was the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. All right, before we continue, let me tell you about Mama Bear Prayers, a podcast for moms who are knee-deep in dishes and training their teens. Whether you are in the carpool lane or the coffee line, host Charity Rios wants to come alongside you and help you grow deeper in your relationship with Jesus. Now, as every parent knows, raising kids can feel a bit like a ping pong game. You bounce from moments of joy to moments of worry and concern. Combine this with the busyness of life. It doesn't slow down in the summer, does it? This back and forth can leave you feeling overwhelmed and even isolated. And as the mom of 4 very busy boys, Charity knows this firsthand, and it's why she created Mama Bear Prayers, to come alongside moms who are on the journey of raising kids. God works through prayer, so check out Mama Bear Prayers today. All right, so let's go on to the third thing that Mamdani says. Okay, actually, Mamdani also, after he talks about America is exceptional because here nothing is fixed into place, He says, you each hold a special power, the power to determine what America means. All right, let's have a pause point. How does that assertion conflict with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? All right, I hope you think about this, right? Because you can hear someone talk. He's got a nice smile. He's engaging. He's personable, and then you think about what he says, right? We really dig into the logic of the argument and not just the presentation of the argument. You have the power to determine what America means. No, America is America because we have these founding documents, because we have these ideals that have been upheld by generation after generation. If you go back on those ideals, if you change those ideals, if you change what America means, all the things that we appreciate about America aren't going to last for long. Okay, and this is actually just kind of funny. Mamdani in his speech says, division is the oldest trick in politics and the cheapest. That would be called telling on yourself. Yes, Zohran. We know. We know that you are trying to divide people. All right. And here we go. We're gonna dig into some of that. This is Mamdani. As we mark 250 years, what do we see? We see a city of contradictions within a nation of contradictions. We see the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one where children go to sleep hungry, while the world's first trillionaire hungers for more. What would you say in response to that argument? Let's have a pause point. Okay, I would go back to the grade 8, and I would say, has this been tried before? What do we see around the world? And again, this is one of those differences in worldviews, where if your worldview says we're living in a world of plenty, there just is enough, and if there's not enough, something's gone wrong, then this kind of argument can be very appealing. But if you are familiar with world history at all, if you've traveled to third world countries, what you'll find is actually no. Poverty is the standard. Poverty is the baseline. And what's unique is wealth. What's unique is plenty. And so anytime we see plenty, we need to go in and we need to say, what caused the plenty? Because the natural state of things is the poverty. And what we know is that Elon Musk creating a car company, creating rocket ships that have, yes, made him very wealthy, but also improved the lives of millions of people. That did not cause hunger. Hunger was already there. Elon Musk came in, made, first of all, lots of his employees lots of money, made lots of people better off with the companies that he has founded. And for that, because he created value, yes, he is fabulously wealthy. And you know what would happen if we took all of Elon Musk's wealth away from him? The world would be a much worse place. Okay, so again, but you can see Mamdani here trying to divide people, right? He's trying to say rich versus poor. Let's keep going on here. We see masked agents terrorizing our streets, eating food cooked by our undocumented neighbors before spiriting them away in unmarked vans. Amazing, right? Amazing. So again, is there a principle involved here? Should a country have borders? Has this been tried before? Do other places around the world have borders? Yes, actually, in fact, they do. That's what makes it a country, right? Is that a country is for the people within its borders, its citizens, and it's not for everyone else in the rest of the world. All right, let's keep going here. Mamdani says, when we sell our elections to the highest bidder, again, this is amazing. He's giving this speech on America's 250th birthday, and he's laying out this list of grievances about America. And you'll hear this a lot, this idea that, oh, our elections are just bought by the highest bidder. Okay, let's have a pause point. What is the problem, the contradiction in that argument? Just given the fact that Mamdani is the one who's making it. Okay, if you are going to assert that we sell our elections to the highest bidder, why are you mayor of New York City? This is kind of always the amazing thing. You'll hear from people on the left. The system is just it's just given off to the highest bidder. Okay, well then why are you guys in office? Why don't the people who oppose you just buy the election then? Why did Kamala Harris raise $1 billion and lose the election? I thought it was just for the highest bidder. And then if you start digging into campaign finance reports, what you'll find is that billionaires have political disagreements too. And so there are billionaires who support candidates on the left and billionaires who support candidates on the right. And so even if this idea that we sold our elections to the highest bidder were true, which it's not, it doesn't make sense because there are billionaires on both sides of the political aisle. Let me end with this. Because I'm going to end by moving a little bit away from Mamdani and just read what Coolidge said in his speech. And this is kind of a tie-in to last week about the roots of America's greatness is actually the Christian foundation of the nation. This is from Coolidge. No one can examine this record and escape the conclusion that in the great outline of its principles, the Declaration was the result of the religious teachings of the preceding period. He continued, a spring will cease to flow if its source be dried up. A tree will wither if its roots be destroyed. In its main features, the Declaration of Independence is a great spiritual document. It is a declaration not of material, but of spiritual conceptions. Again, this is Coolidge. No other theory is adequate to explain or comprehend the Declaration of Independence. It is the product of the spiritual insight of the people. We live in an age of science and of abounding accumulation of material things. These did not create our Declaration. Our Declaration created them. And this is the biggest difference between Mamdani and Coolidge's view of the country. Mamdani only looks at the result. He looks at the wealth. And Coolidge says is the wealth is a result of the Christian spiritual beliefs of the country. And if you get rid of those Christian beliefs in the country, the wealth is going to go away as well, because that's the foundation holding everything up. All right. Thank you for listening. Thanks for indulging me in a late episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, I encourage you to subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/@sharpening-arrows, and share it with a friend. Be courageous like Charlie, stay sharp, and give God the glory. I'll see you next time.